Okay, so the second round of the NRL season has been completed. The Panthers versus the Rabbitohs was the first game of the weekend. The Panthers have run out 16 points to 10 winners. Much better performance by the Panthers. They narrowly lost their opening game. Good response. There's still areas of improvement, and they could have possibly scored more points, and probably should have scored more points. The Bunnies, second best in this game. They had a spell right in the second half where they were chasing the game, where they got desperate, and when they play the ball faster and actually win the contact area, you can see how good the Bunnies are. Both these sides, in my opinion, are going to make the top 8. But yeah, much improved from the Panthers this week over last week. The Eels 26, the Sharks 30. That was the second game of the weekend. The Eels have lost 2 very tight games to open the season without playing badly. So I wouldn't panic if you're an Eels supporter, let's just say that. But 2 close defeats that have gone right down to the final whistle. That is concerning, I suppose. But at the same time, they haven't played badly in either game. So yes, there's been a bit of squad turnover, and there's the Mitchell Moses contract saga that's dragging on. But they played well. On the Sharks side of things, they won without key players. And I think they backed up what they did last season. Poor start to the season in the first game. They bounced back as well. And to score 30 points, you're more likely to win a game than lose it. So defensively, the Eels leaking a bit of points, a few too many. Sharks, good response. Again, under a pressure situation in a tight game, they've come out on top. That's where they came unstuck in the finals. The Broncos were playing the Cowboys. They've won 28 points to 16. Great start to the season, 2 wins out of 2. Cowboys, mixed start to the season. They've won 1, they've lost 1. It's finished 28 points to 16, as I say, to the Broncos. Much discussion going into this season about Kevin Walters' position as head coach, and if they fail to make the finals this year, and how their form fell off a cliff at the end of last season. But it's been a solid start to the season. Yes, we're only 2 games in, but there's some positivity around the Broncos for the first time in about 3 or 4 seasons, which is borne out in the performances. Cowboys, mixed start to the season. Not the end of the world, but a mixed start, and it's going to be tough for them to back up what they did last year. They had a very good season last year. They really surprised a lot of people. Now there's a bit more of a target on them, but they didn't play badly in this game. The Broncos just got the result. The scoreline is not as close as the game actually was, although the Broncos did gain a bit of momentum in the second half and slowly pulled their way clear. The Roosters against the Warriors, 20 points to 12. Really important bounce back win for the Roosters. Warriors, I fear this could be another long season for the Warriors where they're mediocre. But the Roosters, again, mixed start to the season. Embarrassing defeat to the Dolphins. An important win against the Warriors. There are still issues, I think, with this Roosters side. But, again, early in the season. But important to bounce back after a loss. Now, this is the match which, tale of 2 halves. The Raiders, clearly the best side in the first half. Dolphins not on the same level as what they were against the Roosters the week before. It's finished 20 points to 14 in favour of the Dolphins because the Raiders can't play an 80-minute game. Last week, couldn't play in the first half. This week, we can't play in the second half. As a Raiders fan, it is frustrating. So I have concerns about the Raiders this season. I really do. I think maybe as Ricky Stewart run his course as head coach, have we got the balance of the team right? Yes, there's some players missing through injury, but the game management is not good enough from the Raiders' point of view. As a Raiders fan, Dolphins, fantastic start to the season, 2 wins out of 2. I think they've definitely got the mentality right. They came from behind in this game. And their second half performances are both against the Roosters and against the Raiders have proven that this is a resilient team. They may not be the most star-studded team, and the depth may be a bit of an issue as we go through the season, but the Dolphins, do not underrate them. They really have resilience and a good teamwork ethic, and they're building a great identity. I think they could actually be an outside chance for the top 8. I really do. It's just about how long they can sustain this momentum. Imagine if they win in the 3rd week. Then questions will be asked, actually, are we writing off the Dolphins too early? It's that Wayne Bennett effect as well. He is a great man manager. But a very good performance from the Dolphins, 2 wins out of 2. The Storm losing to the Bulldogs, I think, is the major story out of the weekend. They only scored 12 points. The Bulldogs put 5 tries past them, 26 points to the Bulldogs at Amy Park in Melbourne. Yes. Yes, Cameron Munster is out injured. Yes, Ryan Pappenhausen is out injured. But one thing you know about the Storm is the personnel may be different, the system stays the same. The systems and the next up mentality has served them well for the best part of 2 decades. They won a close game against the Eels in the previous week. They weren't in this game. They were beat up. It was like watching the Dogs of War of old under of the Canterbury Bulldogs. They literally beat up the Melbourne Storm, beat them up. They beat them physically. They beat them in the wide areas, the contact area. Yeah, okay. The Storm managed to get 2 tries in the second half, but they were bad. Like the Storm were bad. Like the Roosters against the Dolphins last week, the Storm were bad. The Bulldogs, I think, again, considering their first round defeat, and that was a bit of a meek scoreline, and they really were outplayed, they responded to that defeat. And it's a game away from home as well, at a place where in recent times their record hasn't been great, but historically the Bulldogs actually have a very good record against the Melbourne Storm. So I think the Bulldogs could be again a team that other teams underestimate because they got their tactics right. They looked a bit tired towards the end. I will admit that, and you could argue their depth isn't quite the same as some other teams in the competition. But they really went out the first 55, 60 minutes. They went out and blitzed Melbourne. They ran them off the park, so they won the game. And you could argue physically they were a bit shot by the end, but they deserved to be in that position from the effort they put in the first 55, 60 minutes. Melbourne did not turn up. The Tigers versus the Knights. The scoreline is actually closer than the quality of play. It's finished the Tigers 12, the Knights 14. The Knights are lucky to finish with 12 players on the field. Maybe they should have had 11. Jackson Hastings is lucky not to have been sin binned or sent off for a high tackle in the first half. Caden Pong situation, he goes off injured within a minute of play. Brayley goes off injured as well. The Knights finish with only 1 player on their bench because of injury and players being sent off. The Tigers, however, that's 2 defeats on the bounce. They look all over the place, the Tigers. Yes, they managed to get 2 tries, and they were lucky to get their second try. It should have been classed as double movement. That's a refereeing blunder there, in my opinion. The Knights, backs against the wall job, and they win. They didn't play badly in their first game, and they lost. They held on to win this game. That was a team effort in adversity. Now, that was a highly charged game, the Jackson Hastings situation. Highly charged game. However, the Knights come out on top. There are concerns about Caden Ponga and yet another concussion. And we now have to see, who will replace him in the next round of games, in the halves. But the Knights, battered and bruised, come out and win. And then finally, the Dragons, who had the bye round last week, beat the Titans 32 points to 18. It was very close in the first half. Second half, the Dragons pull away a little bit. But they started last season quite well as well, when they were expected to get the wooden spoon. There's been a lot of debate about the coaching, the dual venture nature of the club, the culture of the club, and the attitudes of some players within the organisation. But that performance today was a very, very good performance, and they fully deserved the win against the Titans. The Titans, good in week 1 in attack, defensively. Okay, there's some weaknesses there. Again, exposed defensively. They were in the game. Second half, they were outplayed. So the Titans win 1, lose 1. The Dragons, they had the bye week. They get their season off to a winning start, which is important. But there's still question marks about the culture within the club, the direction the club has taken. Under the current coaching and regime and the current youth policy, and there's question marks about the attitudes of some of the players within the organisation over the last couple of years. Ben Hunt is the standout player. I think he's one of the main positives out of this team in recent seasons. Can they get back into the top 8? They've had some really poor seasons in the last 3-4 years, so we'll see what happens there. Now, the Sea Eagles had the bye. They didn't play this week, but there we go. There's the round 2 review. Some teams have started a 1-1 record. Some teams have lost both their opening games, and some teams have won both opening games. The Dolphins, great start to the season. The Broncos, another good start to the season. everyone else, it seems to be a bit hit and miss. The Tigers and the Raiders have lost both games to start the season. And of course, the Dragons and the Seagulls have had a bye each to start the season, as well as a win each. So it's quite right now. It's the first 2 weeks. After about 5 weeks, I think we'll have an idea of where certain teams are trending up or down. But I've got some concerns about the Raiders, and I've got some concerns about the Tigers already. The Bulldogs shouldn't be underestimated. The Dolphins, they are a revelation because people expected them to struggle, even with Wayne Bennett as head coach, and they've won their first 2 games. So they've got a good solid footing, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.